as tomorrow. According to U.S. officials, a military strike on Syria could come as early as Thursday. If the United States decides to strike Syria, they're likely to conduct 3 days of missile strikes. The attack will be a bit more to send a message to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad for his use of chemical weapons on his citizens. Firefighters gained ground in Yosemite wildfire. Firefighters gained ground yesterday in their 11th day of fighting in the huge wildfire in and around Yosemite National Park. The rim fire is now 20% contained. The fire has grown to 180,000 acres and has already destroyed 111 structures, including 31 homes. Erratic winds and difficult terrain, though, have exacerbated the challenges facing firefighters. And new photos of Tsarnaev captured and released. New photos were released yesterday of the capture of Boston Marathon bombing suspect Doksar Tsarnaev. Police officer Sergeant Sean Murphy took the photos. The night the suspect was captured, he distributed them to Boston Magazine, which then published them first last month, and then more this week. The photos depict Tsarnaev, his face bloodied, climbing out of the boat he was hiding in a suburban backyard. And that, my friends, is a brief look at the news headlines for this Wednesday. Well, it's time now for today's birthdays, which includes celebrity birthdays. And as soon as I remember where I did with the open, I will play it for you, and then we will go on with the program. And there it is, right where I left it.
Damn it, Jim, what the hell's the matter with you? Other people have birthdays. Why are we treating yours like a funeral?
Balls, that ought to be lectured.
Ooh, yeah. Very, very many happy reasons.
As I said at the start of the program, today would have been my dad's 70th birthday, born on this date in 1943 in Keokuk, Iowa, and died October 13th, 2001. So, Dad, in whatever cosmic plane of existence you're in now, and I'm sure you're laughing it up, and by now I'm sure Gunther is with you, and hope you two are getting reacquainted. I know he wasn't exactly your favorite dachshund. Not to say my dad hated that dog, but Gunther was a little bit odd, and he did require a little more attention than some other dogs that we've had. But nevertheless, Dad, happy birthday in whatever cosmic plane of existence you're in. And you share birthdays with my good friends Kirby Spade, childhood friend, as well as Rachel Smith, also another childhood friend, Linda Quinley, all celebrating birthdays today. Celebrity birthdays for this Wednesday includes David Soul, played Detective Ken Hutchinson on Starsky and Hutch. He is also 70 today. Billy Boyd played Pippin in the Lord of the Rings movies. He's 45 today. Jason Priestley is 44. Jack Black, remember him in Tropic Thunder and Nacho Libre, which incidentally is streaming on Netflix as we speak. He is 44 today. And Armie Hammer, the new Lone Ranger, and the Winklevoss twins in the social networks, is 27 today. And if you're celebrating a birthday today, happy birthday. Yeah, man. That music is far out, if you know what I mean. All right, let's see. Do I have today in history in here? I remember dubbing it into the system, and there it is. There it is. All right, let's see. Do I have anything special today in history? I forgot to get the year on this, but I do know that the first known photograph of a tornado was taken near Howard, South Dakota on this date in history. I believe it was 1888, but I'm not 100% certain of that. What I am certain of, though, is getting that twister to hold still for the picture was definitely not easy.
Guess what day it is?
All right, Camel, that'll be enough. I don't know why you're so faint today. Anyway, it's time for Today in History. And this is from the Associated Press.
August 28th, 1963. Martin Luther King Jr. caps a major civil rights march in Washington with a speech for the ages at the Lincoln Memorial.
I have a dream
that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
1968. In Chicago, police and anti-Vietnam War protesters clash in the streets during the Democratic National Convention. Connecticut Senator Abraham Ribicoff condemns the police for the violence when he nominates a fellow senator for president.
And with George McGovern as President of the United States, we wouldn't have to have Gestapo tactics in the streets of Chicago.
But Vice President Hubert Humphrey is the nominee for the deeply divided Democrats. He narrowly loses to Republican Richard Nixon in the fall. 1955. Emmett Till, a black teenager from Chicago, is abducted from his uncle's home in Money, Mississippi. 2 white men seize Till after he supposedly whistled at a white woman. He's found brutally murdered days later. An all-white jury acquits the men of the crime. They later confess in a magazine interview. And 1996. In London, a royal split becomes final as Britain's Prince Charles and Princess Diana are granted a divorce. Diana is killed in a Paris car crash a year later. Charles marries longtime love Camilla Parker Bowles in the following decade. Today in history, August 28th. Ed Donahue, The Associated Press.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
I'm in.
Welcome back to Studio 26 as I try to regain my composure. Pulled that down a little too hard there. And still to come, we'll have the World News Roundup in just a moment from CBS Radio, as well as the Song of the Day, a very special Song of the Day, and a very special tribute to Martin Luther King Jr. toward the end of today's broadcast. But right now, though, what do you say we take care of some markets, shall we? And take a look at Tuesday's closing numbers. First of all, U.S. stocks fell hard yesterday with the Dow Jones Industrials ending at a 2-month low as unease over possible U.S. action against Syria shook global markets. And I'm talking very slowly because my computer is a little bit sluggish here. Gold rose to a 3-month high, bonds rallied, and crude oil closed above $109 a barrel for the first time since early 2012. And let's see what else we have for you here. The Dow Jones Industrials average shed 170 points, closing at 14,776, with Bank of America Corp closing nearly 0.25% higher. Microsoft nearly 0.75% higher, facing declines that included all but 2 of its 30 components. In its worst session since June 20th, the S&P 500 lost 26 points, closing 1,630 for Tuesday's close. With financial and technology hardest hit, and utilities faring best among its 10 major sectors, all of which closed lower. The Nasdaq Composite declined 79 points, closing at 3,578, with the technology-heavy index suffering its worst point loss this year. For every stock rising, 4 fell on the New York Stock Exchange, where 683 million shares traded. Composite volume declared 3.2 billion shares. World markets dropped this morning with fears of a possible U.S. military strike against Syria. Facebook stock is nearing a record high, and the latest indication that the new home market is catering to older, affluent buyers. Wall Street eased gains late Monday after Secretary of State John Kerry said the United States would hold Syria accountable for using chemical weapons that opposition groups contend killed more than 1,300 people. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said in a televised interview with the BBC that U.S. forces in the region are ready should President Barack Obama order action against Syria. Yesterday, the unease over tensions in the Middle East had the Chicago Board Options Exchange Volatility Index, VIX, up nearly 12% for yesterday's close. And that, my friends, is a brief look at the U.S. stock market. We'll now switch things over to the to public radio for more stock market information on this Wednesday morning as I try to unscramble my head.
With the focus on Syria, also keep an eye on an unfolding economic meltdown in one of the world's most important economies, India.
Marketplace Morning Report is produced in association with the University of Southern California.
From 8 p.m. in New York, I'm David Brancaccio with the global perspective on business and economics. Tensions over a possible U.S. and allied military strike in Syria drives up the U.S. dollar, which is seen as a safe haven. Down go other currencies, including India's rupee. Add to that rising U.S. interest rates that make dollar investments more attractive, plus underlying weakness in India's economy, and it adds up to India's worst economic crisis in 20 years. The rupee fell below 68 to the dollar today on a drop of more than 3%. Let's check in from the street level in India, Calcutta specifically, where we find our friend Rahul Tandon of the BBC.
Every morning, Indian businessmen get up and try and predict how much lower the rupee is going to fall. You know, today at one point it was 68.75 rupees to the dollar. Some analysts are predicting it could hit 75. And the government has announced these plans to try and boost the economy by starting up 36 huge infrastructure projects. But Mr. Chidambaram, the finance minister's words seem to be having no effect at all because hour after hour, foreign investors are moving their money out of the world's largest democracy.
Now, this isn't just an esoteric high finance story here. People living and trying to work in India will feel this devaluation on the ground.
They're feeling it already because India has to import oil, and basically the oil prices are beginning to go up. Let me give you a few examples. This is a country that relies on onions. The price of onions in the last 3 weeks has gone up by 5 times. You talk to youngsters trying to find jobs in India at the moment. It's very hard. I'm just coming from talking to my cousin. He returned to India from Dubai 5 months ago, thinking confidently that he'd get a job in the software sector. One interview in 5 months means he's going back to the Middle East.
In an economy that not even half a year ago was seen to be booming.
Yeah, the booming Indian economy looks in the short term like it's crashing. And, I think the big problem here is that we're moving towards an election year. The fear is here that until the elections next year, we could see the Indian economy continuing to slide and slide and slide.
The BBC's Rahul Tandon on a street corner in Calcutta. Rahul, thank you.
Thank you very much, David.
Now let's do the numbers. After the Dow fell 170 points yesterday, 1.1%, Dow futures this morning are down but just slightly. The S&P is flat and NASDAQ futures are up slightly. In London, the FT 100 right now is down 0.2%. A report this morning shows a persistent disconnect between the pay of corporate chiefs and their performance. According to the Institute for Policy Studies, nearly 40% of the highest-paid CEOs either led firms that received bailout money, lost their jobs, or had to pay fraud-related fines after the financial crisis hit. Sally Herships reports on how companies decide what they pay their leaders.
When companies are hunting for a new CEO, they first make a budget, right? Well, no.
Most boards, I would say, are willing to pay almost anything if they think they have got the right person.
Carol Bowie works with Institutional Shareholder Services. She says companies first decide who they want, then go after them. Last year, the median level of CEO pay at large corporations like Apple was just over $22 million. But is it worth it?
Well, it must be because they keep doing it.
Kevin Halleck is chair of the economics department at Cornell. He says for huge corporations with revenues in the billions, spending millions can make sense.
Having the very, very best person versus the person just below that person might be worth it, $2 or $5 or $8 million more.
But Halleck says we should focus not just on amounts, but how pay is given out, like tying salary and bonuses to the success of the company. In New York, I'm Sally Herships for Marketplace.
Serving as a public school teacher in America. There's the joy of energizing young minds, and there are the indignities. Many teachers have to dig into their own bank accounts to pay for class.